I want to wish a big cigar and bar happy birthday to one of the big kahunas, the father of modern tiki and Polynesian pop culture in North America, Mr. Donn Beach. Hello and welcome to Cocktail Corner. I am James of Cigar and Bar, and today we're going to be making a classic cocktail to honor the birthday of Mr. Donn Beach. And whether it's Donn with one N or two N's, it is most certainly a lie, as can be said about a lot of his personal history. Most of Donn Beach's history, and particularly the stories he told about himself, should be taken with a grain of sugar, because he was, as has been noted on other channels, a top quality, grade A, #1 bullshit artist. And he made up a lot of stuff along the way just to make himself more interesting. So we're going to go into a couple of things that we do know. He was born Ernest Raymond Beaumont Gant, and didn't take too kindly to that name, as it got a bit of a whiff to it during Prohibition when he was a bootlegger. So he left behind that suspicious name to take on the new persona of Donn Beach when he opened Donn the Beachcomber's restaurant in LA in the 1930s. And it quickly became just a massive cultural movement that spawned across the country, overseas, into other names and other hands, and we owe him a lot for that. So I'm going to start with a drink in my hand to celebrate his birthday. One of my very favorite rums. This is the El Dorado Single Still Port Morant, which is 100% pot distilled rum. I'm going to be getting my hands on some more 100% pot distilled rums for some of the recipes that I want to make. As I previously mentioned, Smuggler's Cove has a rum system that they use, and one of the classifications is 100% pot distilled. This fits that criteria. This is also 90 some odd Canadian dollars. It's not cheap, and it's not really the kind of unaged pot distilled rum that you want to put in a cocktail. So today, I'm just gonna have a little splash here of the good stuff before we get into making a cocktail here. So, Donn, cheers, here's to you. Oh, it smells so good already. Yeah, very nice. Very apropos for one of the ingredients of today's drink. It's got a little bit of a nose of passion fruit. Slight iodine notes. Oh, it's just a little bit salty, very, not sugary, but there's a lot of sweetness. Brown sugar molasses kind of sweetness. And I just love it. This is one of the best rums I've ever had. So we're going to sip on this as we go along today. But let's start working on a cocktail we're going to make today. Now, this was a Donn the Beachcomber cocktail that came to light in the 1960s. According to the Total Tiki app by Jeff the Beach Bomberry, if I look up the skull and bones in this recipe here today, it says this unpublished 1960s version of Donn the Beach's skull and bones came to us courtesy of ex-tiki bartender Tony Ramos. So this was a Donn specialty that was kind of handed down, word of mouth, handed down from the bartender to one of the great revivalists of the tiki movement these days, which is Jeff the Beach Bomberry, who wrote this book, Sip and Safari. I had the 10th anniversary. I love it. It's great. It's one of my tiki Bibles in my cocktail collection here. And we're going to make that drink today to celebrate Donn's legacy. Today's recipe calls for first some juice. So we're going to get some fresh lime juice here into our cup. Calls for 3/4 of an ounce of lime juice. That's 3/4 of an ounce there. Next, it calls for half an ounce of passion fruit syrup. Now, passion fruit syrup is pretty easy to make. It's 1-to-1 mix of simple syrup and frozen pureed passion fruit. And the simple syrup that it calls for this particular recipe was a classic simple syrup of 1-to-1. I make mine 2-to-1, so I diluted my simple syrup a little bit with water before I added it to this syrup. This one won't last nearly as long as my simple syrup will, but that's okay. I'm going to be making a couple of passion fruit cocktails this week anyways. So that was half an ounce of passion fruit syrup. It also calls for half an ounce of grenadine. I've got some of my homemade grenadine here, made from granulated sugar, pomegranate juice, and pomegranate molasses. If you can, absolutely make your own or use a natural product. The Rose's grenadine is just, I don't want to speak ill of commercial products, but it is not suitable for this particular recipe, or for any recipe, I would say. Pour it over your ice cream if you're interested, but I wouldn't put it in a cocktail. Next, we got a dash of Angostura bitters. As I mentioned in my last tiki video, a dash in a small bottle is only about half as much as you're going to get out of the dashers of the larger bottle of bitters. So we're going to do 2 dashes to make the 1 dash that's called for in this recipe. Similar to the last tiki cocktail I made, this is going to call for a bit of absinthe in here. So essentially what we're making is a little heavy on the absinthe version of Angostura, which was 50-50 Angostura and Pernod or absinthe. This one is going to be a little bit heavier on the absinthe. Instead of doing 4 drops of absinthe, it's calling for 8 drops of absinthe. So I'm going to go back to my bar spoon like I did last time. I'm going to try to put in just a bar spoonful of this stuff. There, it's about 2/3 of a bar spoon. And now for the fun stuff, I'm going to add some of the rum. I'm going to start with a column distilled rum. I'm going to go back to my Flor de Caña 7 like I used last time. And this is going to be a total of half an ounce. And again, similar to last time, I need to use a 151 overproofed Demerara rum. So I'm going to reach for the incomparable Lemon Heart & Son 151, which I am running out of. If any of you know of any Canadian distributors available to me here in Ontario where I can get more of this without needing to go across the border, I would love to get my hands on another bottle. I'm trying to be careful with it, but this is exactly the kind of use that I have it around for making a classic cocktail the way it was meant to be made. And this is 1.5 here. So getting quite low on this stuff now, but we'll accept that because that's how we make classic cocktails with the classic ingredients. That's all the ingredients we're going to be putting here into this cocktail shaker, except for the ice. So let's ice it up. And I'm once again going to use my Hamilton Beach drink mixer here. So let's give this a flash mix here. That should be flash mixed enough there. Tango over here, as you may remember from my last videos, is nodding in approval. And although it does say to strain this over fresh ice, I am going to do what in the industry gets referred to as a dirty dump, where I'm going to take the ice from the mixing or the shaking and pour that right into the glass, because I don't see the point in wasting ice today. It's just for me. This isn't a big commercial concern, and I don't think it makes a huge difference. If any of you out there have an opinion on whether mixing or shaking with one ice and pouring over fresh ice is better than pouring or mixing or shaking or blending ice just into the glass, I would like to know your reasoning behind that. I would be interested to have that discussion. So let me know in the comments below. This is a Skull and Bones cocktail, so I'm going to put that in a skull glass. This thing is awesome. I want to thank Bone Shaker IPA made by Amsterdam Brewing because they produced this particular mug for their beer, and it's going to be great for this particular purpose today. So we're going to take the cocktail here. I'm going to pour that into this mug, and for garnish, I think this guy needs a little bit of credit. For talking about Donn Beach, he was a genius of not only marketing and mixology, but of holding a room enthralled and just basically bringing his ideas to fruition. So we're going to put a little bit of brain in here for our tiki drink. We're going to add a nice brain lime. In you go. And let's see how it tastes. That is sweet. It's very sweet. I would have thought that, and strong. I think the ice may not have quite blended up enough because there's not a lot of dilution in this. This is a pretty sweet, strong drink. Although it was meant to be one of his more challenging beverages, let's say. Donn knew that he could easily get a lot of women into his restaurants for cocktails with exotic names and lovely fruit juice mixes, but it was harder for men of the era to be enticed to come in and have basically anything with fruit juice in it. It wasn't considered to be the manly thing to do. So you need to get people to come in and enjoy the drinks and enjoy the lovely company they had in there. So his marketing strategies tended towards, let's make this a challenge. This was the kind of thing he started off with his Zombie, which was one of his most expensive drinks. $3 on the menu at the time, which would have been, by today's metrics, it would have been about $15 a drink. And it was strictly limited to 2 per person because they were, quote, that strong. The idea that you could get the more manly clientele to come in because you had issued them a challenge that they could only stomach, or they could only handle 2 of these beverages. That was an interesting marketing point. So that's what got them in the door. And it was this kind of strong drink that was meant to entice them. Even at a higher price point, they thought it was worth it because they were taking up a challenge. So hopefully I've talked long enough there to get this cocktail a little more melted, a little more diluted. Let's try it again. That is a bit better. Still got some bite to it. Still strong, but less strong. And that Demerara flavor from the 151 rum comes right through. The column distilled there's a little bit of dryness on the back from the column distilled rum. And the passion fruit really seems to be burying the Grenadine. I don't taste much in the way of Grenadine in there, but I can certainly taste that passion fruit. It's very nice. And there's a little bit of the tartness of the lime in there. More so now that I've dropped a whole lime brain inside of this particular cocktail. Yeah, that's fun. That's tasty. I'm going to let you go out there in YouTube land now, and I'm going to finish enjoying this cocktail. It's going to be a while before we come back to celebrate the birthday of the 3rd father of Tiki, Vic Bergeron, because that's not till later on in the year. Don't worry, we're going to have more cocktail videos, and in particular, more Tiki videos coming up. I've got a couple planned that I think will be very fun. I've got 3 in mind already, and then I'll come up with something else for Vic's birthday. But I hope that you have a lovely day out there in YouTube land. I hope that you've got something cold to keep in your hand. And I hope that you will join me in the sentiment of wishing a happy birthday to Donn the Beachcomber. Donn, we love you. We're glad that you left your genius behind you. Cheers.